We are currently in an AI revolution. The great companies are building AI at a very fast rate and we are able to utilize all its capabilities. Or are we? Well, what is actually AI? AI is basically a mind on its own which has various neural processes like our neurons that take in instructions and search in their various parameters and then fire an answer. This is basically how an AI works. There are two types of AI, generative AI and large language models. Generative AI means that AI can be used to generate something like images, videos, mind maps and various other things. People have use of generative AI more compared to second type, which is the large language models. Now, large language models are basic text based in which a user inquires something, post a query via prompt, and then the LLM predicts the next token, predicts the next output according to it, which will have the most probability of coming. It does not actually answer something, it does not actually generate an answer, it only guesses what next user could write and it outputs that answer which has the most probability. This is how large language models work. And there are two types of large language models. First is closed source models. Closed source models examples can include GPT models or Anthropic models, Claude models, and Google Gemini. Whereas open source models can include examples like Olama, Quen, and it can also include Google's Gemma. Now, what is the main difference between open source and closed source model is that closed source model typically require money to run. This is because closed source models work on billions and trillions of parameters. I think the maximum number of parameters is around 1.76 or 2 trillion something. However, open source models require almost no money to run because they work on very less parameters. Here, by parameters, I mean neurons. It is the basic understanding of parameters means neurons or the amount of data points it has access to. The more amount of access to data points, the greater its accuracy is. That is why we prefer closed source models to build our AI systems rather than open source models. However, there is one more thing. Open source models are trainable. You can actually fine tune the model according to your specific needs and then it can perform better than even the closed source models with highly more parameters. What actually is trending nowadays is AI agents. Agent means an helper to get from point A to point B. So an agent is something that facilitates a user's interest and completes the user's interest by making the user's work easy. AI agents automate things, they make stuff, they make processes easier for people or businesses. So typical AI agents which we all know are the chatbots and the voice agents which are very popular. Traditional chatbots or the traditional voice agents we used to have were coded in Python or coded in such a way that they had a specific workflow they had to follow, and if the user said something other than the workflow, the AI would default to its usual cycle and not be able to answer anything outside of its workflow which is already designed by its coder. However, here when we integrate AI with the usual traditional chatbots and voice agents, what happens is it has a mind of its own, and that is why if a user enters outside of its workflow, it is able to answer its queries and bring the user back to the workflow. Now, how do AI agents work? You see, for example, first a user wants to get an information about something. It parses that into the LLM, the large language model, and then the large language model has access to two things. First of all, its own knowledge, the parameters which it has, and second, knowledge base that it has been provided to by its developer. Now, how can it have access to its knowledge base when it already has too much knowledge? Why are we giving it a knowledge base? Well, you see, when we have to adjust the AI to respond in a particular manner, we input it with a prompt as well as a knowledge base with reference to which it can answer correctly. So, for example, an AI is working for a dental company. Now, a dental company is a local dental company, it does not have access to that specific company's knowledge in its database, in its original database. That is why we have to provide additional knowledge base for it to reference that local company's information while answering. Workflow is that the user inputs in the information, it passes that into the LLM, and then the large language models have a knowledge base. And how is the knowledge base coded to it? It is actually a vector database. Well, all the information which you have actually given to the AI to answer is not given to it at once, because the information can be too big. For example, it is of 50,000 words. 50,000 words is a lot for a typical large language model. It does not have access to all that information at once while answering a user's query. The whole information, the 50,000 words, is divided into various small segments of around 200 or 300 words. And these 200 and 300 words carry a particular vector or a particular information to it, which the large language models has an access to. When the user inputs the query, the large language model has an access to another embedder. Now, what an embedder does is it transforms that query, it transforms the user's information to a vector, and then it searches for points in its knowledge base which we have provided it around that information point or around that vector. For example, if we were talking about a dental company, someone wanted to know about implants. So, and we have provided a 50,000 page manual on what are implants and various dental services. Where implants is written, it is actually stored in a particular space, in an imaginary space, in a particular vector point or information point. When the user searches about implants, it converts that query into a specific vector point, in an information point, and then searches in that space where all that information which we have entered through our knowledge base is stored. And when it does that, it gets to that point where the actual information of implants is stored, and then it converts all that information to text and then parses that into the LLM, which is able to process it and then answer to the user. This is the whole process. So this whole process is called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. For example, the user wants to set an appointment in the dental company. So we have encoded the LLM to have a tool which is used for appointment setting. And when the user says that he wants to set an appointment, that tool activates because the LLM has that access to that tool, and then that tool is taking the information from the user and then converting that into a Google Sheet row. So it does that, and this is how an AI agent works. So to summarize, what does an AI agent do? It takes in a user prompt, it has access to its system's prompt and its tools and knowledge database. After taking user's prompt, it converts that user's prompt into an information point and searches for that information point in its knowledge base. After getting information, it passes that into an LLM, and that LLM either sends reply to the user or performs a particular function, and it gives a reply to the user. By now, I know that you must have realized that there are various applications of this type of processes in our day-to-day lives as well as the businesses around you. My typical dream automation to be is the collaboration of various agents working together to perform various tasks, but ultimately all these tasks are linked together in a beautiful web. Now, first, an AI agent is a content creator. This here is a generative AI. So it creates social media reels and long form content for a dental company. When the person seeing the content visits the website, there is a chatbot agent which interacts with the user, or a voice agent that can interact with the user who has come to the website. After that, it can answer related to the dental company's queries and also set an appointment for them. And if we have to go one step further, we can qualify them as good, medium or bad. After which, when the appointment is set, the patient comes to the dental company, visits and goes. After getting the treatment, we can call from the quality control, the outbound calls to that person, asking about how the services were at that dental company. Now it stores the feedback of the user sends that feedback to the doctors, the Real2 team, after which it also sends that feedback to the content creator agent we talked about first, where the content creator can optimize its content for particular feedback of the user as client testimonial. So this was the whole AI agent framework that I am planning to develop. So I hope you found this content valuable. If you have any feedback, please write it in the comment section below. Thank you and have a wealthy life ahead.